His name is Critical Dan, the movie man. Find out which movies he's gonna pan. His biggest gripe's a film being bland. So here's the movies he cannot stand. Oh, Tim Burton, Tim Burton, how the mighty fall. I remember seeing he was going to finally give Dumbo a much-needed revamp that it desperately longed for, so that a modern audience could finally enjoy the story. The trailer seemed really cool to me. But then that tomato meter dropped, and so did my excitement. It had me wondering, just what went wrong with the once-beloved director? Why has he fallen so far from grace? Now, I had been on a Batman frenzy lately, just getting really pumped for the new Matt Reeves Batman. I watched the entire Nolan trilogy, even some Zack Snyder movies. I thought, hey man, while on the subject of Tim Burton, now would be a good idea to look into his director's catalog firsthand. After all, his Batman films are considered where he got his start. I'll see once and for all what changed his movies over time. But I came to a sad revelation. After watching these movies, I realized something. Tim Burton never changed. We changed. So what do I mean? Well, it's simple. Mr. Burton is from a very different time, one where audiences were a lot more simple and easy to please. They didn't really demand much. So many movies at the time, such as Indiana Jones or Back to the Future, they relied on very simple characters and stories. And those are innocent enough, but over time, audiences start to want more. Yeah, I'm sure we're very nostalgic for them, but when you think back, there wasn't much to them. Like Back to the Future, for instance. It's just a guy trying to get back to the future. We've had so much more with time travel stories since then that it seems kind of trivial in comparison now. You can't really make a movie like that today. Audiences now need something with more depth, something more engaging. The sad thing is, we've all moved on and demanded more, while Tim Burton has relatively stayed the same, pleasing an audience from a completely different timescape. Stubbornness to move on in the industry, if you will. And I'm not just talking out of my ass. It becomes more and more obvious when you dig into his filmography, and you discover one of his most acclaimed films is Ed Wood, a movie that celebrates mediocrity and lowbrow cinema of the past. The more you delve into this and realize this is his mindset, the sadder things kind of get. I realize there's a reason his Batman films have stopped being so celebrated. Once considered the kings, Batman and Batman Returns are nowhere near as iconic as people would have you believe at one point. They've kind of fallen off the map. It's extremely rare to hear somebody quoting from the movie, and if you do, good luck having anyone else in the room even know what movie you're quoting from.
Never rub another man's rhubarb.
Compare it to The Dark Knight. Over a decade later, and the words uttered by Heath Ledger's visually iconic character still lingers in our minds.
I believe whatever doesn't kill you simply makes you stranger.
It all comes back to the fact that Tim Burton is a man who caters to simple people who need very little to be engaged. Let's look deeper into the movie and see what I mean exactly. Just look at Gotham, for instance. You start to get taken out by the story about how fake this scenery is. Now, obviously Gotham isn't real, but it's the movie's job to make me believe it is, and I've never seen a city look like this in the real world. Everything is overly colorful or too shapely, and you realize they filmed this movie using little models to represent the city, even though it would have been fairly easy to shoot in a real-life location, such as New York, similar to what Nolan did, and it was pretty common practice at the time. Making a fake city out of models was kind of unnecessary. When I realized this, it kind of came full circle, and I realized that Tim Burton was basically making something for children to find visually pleasing. After all, the man made a name for himself through children's films, which isn't a bad thing, but you begin to find that he has a small range compared to someone like Steven Spielberg, who can make both children's films and adult films. And then we have the movie's themes. Very rarely do they challenge us, the audience. It's very basic good versus evil, with Batman even straight up murdering in the end, and no one questioning it. One of Batman's biggest rules, and it's tossed aside, again demonstrating Tim Burton's stubbornness to avoid any depth or to properly adapt the character like he was supposed to. Again, we look at The Dark Knight, which takes heavy inspiration from the comics, but with a twist of visual hyperrealism that keeps us invested. Things that keep me from asking the obvious, like why can't Batman move his neck? How does that armor protect him? Why does Batman insist on choosing style over practicality? Such as his car. The tumbler in The Dark Knight actually looks like something the real Batman would really have. And not a toy made for Hot Wheels. Paying attention to things like this are what keep us invested in the story, so we don't ask these questions constantly. The movie's themes also ask us very challenging questions. Is it right to kill, even in the name of greater good? Characters like the Joker having us question ourselves. What even is good? What is morality? And is it as important as we were always led to believe? Burton's Batman fails to have any of this. He just offers us evil Jack Nicholson, who just wants to gas the city. So Batman kills him in the end. Do you see what I mean? I even watched some of Batman Returns, and I thought it was kind of long and boring, so I did skip around, but I watched just enough to be able to confirm it really is just more of the same. And I really need to talk about Jack Nicholson. My God. Overrated is not a word I throw around often, but in this case, it's really hard to say otherwise, especially when you look at the hard work and torture that Heath went through for the role.
I'm gonna make this pencil disappear.
Only one word crosses my mind when I see Nicholson's performance: lazy. To anyone familiar with the man, it should be obvious that he's phoning it in and doing the same thing he did in The Shining, because honestly, he's probably full of himself. He was on top of the world and was in one of the most famous movies of all time, so he could do no wrong. And everybody rewarded him for it, despite being a rehash of his most iconic role. Even Jared Leto, as much as I hate him, had some kind of ambition when taking on the role, and he wanted to do something that he hadn't done before. I honestly can't say the same for Jack, and that's why I find his performance to hardly be as legendary as people led me on to believe it was. So, what exactly am I trying to say? That Tim Burton sucks? He's a complete hack? No, not at all. I'm not trying to spread anything that mean-spirited. I do, however, think that we as an audience have matured past movies like Tim Burton's Batman, and it's time for us to stop looking towards them for so much inspiration when we have the future of film right in front of us. My mission here isn't to say that Tim Burton is bad, more so that his movies are stuck in a simplicity rut that has been present for him in a while now. I'm extending an invitation to the director for him to see that and hopefully once again make movies that aren't as great as his old movies were, but as great as we remember them being.
What are you?
I'm Batman. I'm Critical Dan the Movie Man, and I hope you all have a great day.